My name is Miranda Cole. I'm 32, an accountant in Reno, Nevada, living in the apartment I worked years to buy. Everything was fine until one evening when my parents showed up at my door, bags in hand, claiming they'd lost their house bad investments. They said nowhere else to go. I let them in, but something didn't feel right. Their faces were strangely calm, their story far too vague. Why were they acting as if nothing serious had happened? The way they moved around my home, the way they looked at me, it all felt unsettling, like a storm was quietly building beneath the surface. And when the truth finally revealed itself, it shattered me. What I uncovered wasn't just about money or a roof over our heads. It was a betrayal so personal, so calculated, that it left me questioning everything I thought I knew about family. If you were in my place, what would you do? Share your thoughts and stay tuned to see how this shocking story unfolds. That night, my parents dragged their suitcases through my apartment door, the wheels scraping against the hardwood. My mom set her bag down and headed straight for the kitchen, pulling out my neatly arranged spices and shoving them into different cabinets. This setup doesn't make sense. Miranda, she said, her voice sharp, like she owned the place. My dad plopped onto the couch, flipped on the TV, and cranked the volume to a sports channel. Just temporary, he muttered, not even looking at me until we get back on our feet. Temporary. Their suitcases were stuffed like they were moving in for good. I stood there, arms crossed, watching them take over my space. It felt wrong, like I was a guest in my own home. I tried asking questions. Mom, what happened with your investments? I said, keeping my tone calm. She waved me off, rearranging my plates now. Oh, it's complicated, sweetheart. Bad deals, you know. Her smile was too tight, her eyes darting away. Dad just grunted, glued to the game. I pressed harder. What kind of deals? Can you show me the paperwork? Mom's hands froze on a stack of bowls. Don't worry about it, she snapped, then softened. You're such a good daughter letting us stay. That didn't answer anything. Dad chimed in, still not looking up. Yeah, Miranda, relax. We'll figure it out. Their dodges made my stomach twist. Why couldn't they give me a straight answer? I retreated to my bedroom, locking the door. Something was off, way off. I grabbed my phone and texted Robert Klein, my college friend who's now a lawyer here in Reno. Hey, can you check something for me? My parents say they lost their house. I need to see the property records. Robert replied fast on it. Give me a day or two. I thanked him, but my mind was racing. Why did they act so comfortable if they'd just lost everything? I lay awake, replaying Mom's vague words about my sister. She's doing fine, Mom had said earlier, almost too casually when I asked about her. It was a throwaway comment, but it stuck with me. Why bring her up at all? The next morning, I found Mom in the kitchen again, now organizing my pantry. This place could use some order, she said, tossing out my half-empty cereal box. I bit my tongue, trying not to snap. Dad was sprawled on the couch, coffee mug in hand, flipping channels. You got a nice setup here, Miranda, he said, like he was sizing up my apartment. I forced a smile. Thanks, Dad. So what's your plan? You looking for a new place? He shrugged. We'll stay until things settle. No rush. No rush. My apartment is in a hotel. I pressed again. What about your savings? Any leads on jobs? Mom cut in from the kitchen. Stop interrogating us, Miranda. We're your parents. Her voice had an edge, like I'd crossed a line. I headed to work, my head spinning. At the office, I kept thinking about Mom's comment about my sister. It was so random, so out of place. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. Typical. She's always been the golden child, the one they fawned over while I worked for everything. I pushed the thought aside and focused on my spreadsheets, but it nagged at me. Why mention her now? That evening, back at the apartment, I caught Mom on the phone, her voice low. Yes, she's fine with us staying, she said, then paused. No, don't worry about it. She hung up quick when she saw me. Who was that? I asked. Just a friend, she said, brushing past me to the kitchen. I didn't buy it. I texted Robert again, pushing for answers. Anything on the house yet? He replied. Still digging. Found something weird about a recent sale. I'll call you tomorrow. Weird. That word hit me hard. I sat on my bed staring at the suitcases still cluttering my living room. Mom was humming in the kitchen, moving my stuff around like she'd already claimed it. Dad's laughter echoed from the TV. This wasn't temporary. They were settling in, and I was losing control of my own home. I needed answers fast. The next day, I watched them closer. My mom was in my living room now, moving my bookshelves, stacking my novels like they were hers. This could use a better layout, she said, not even glancing at me. My dad was pacing near the window, muttering about how my balcony needed new railings. We could fix this place up, Miranda. He said, his tone too casual, like he was planning a renovation. I stood by the kitchen counter, gripping my coffee mug. Fix it up for what I asked. Mom ignored me, humming as she shoved my photo frames into a corner. Dad just shrugged. Make it more comfortable, you know. Comfortable for who I tried again? When are you planning to leave? I said, keeping my voice steady. Mom's humming stopped. Don't be so pushy, she snapped, turning back to the shelves. I wasn't letting it go. You said this was temporary. What's your next step? I pressed. Dad looked annoyed, scratching his neck. We're working on it, Miranda. Give us time. Time? They'd been here 2 days, acting like they owned my apartment. Mom started wiping down my coffee table, even though it was spotless. You worry too much, she said, her smile forced. I opened my mouth to argue, but my phone buzzed. It was a text from Linda Marsh, my coworker. Saw your sister on Instagram. She's posting pics of a fancy new house in Reno. What's that about? My heart sank. A new house. I stared at the message, my grip tightening on the phone. Mom's vague comment about my sister yesterday flashed back. This wasn't adding up. I stepped into my bedroom, shutting the door. I opened Instagram and scrolled through my sister's posts. There it was, a shiny new house, modern with a big backyard. She was posing in front of it, all smiles, captioning it, "Living the dream." My stomach churned. How could she afford that? I texted Linda back. When did she post this? Linda replied instantly. Last week. Looks expensive. Last week. That was right before my parents showed up. I sat on my bed trying to piece it together. They said they lost everything, but my sister was flaunting a new house. Were they lying to me? I called Robert, my voice low. Hey, any update on those property records? I asked. He sounded focused. Still checking Miranda. The county office is slow, but I'm pushing them. Should have something by tomorrow. I thanked him, but my mind was racing. Why would Mom mention my sister so casually? I went back to the living room. Mom was now rearranging my curtains, pulling them down. These are too dark, she said, tossing them onto the couch. I clenched my fists. Mom, stop touching my stuff, I said, sharper than I meant. She looked up, surprised. I'm just helping Miranda. Helping, eh? It felt like they were erasing me from my own home. Dad was on the phone now, speaking quietly in the corner. I caught a few words, something about the plan and no issues. He hung up when he saw me watching. Who is that? I asked. Just a realtor, he said, too quick. A realtor. For what? I pushed harder. You're looking for a new place already? He waved me off. Don't worry about it. I wasn't buying it. I went back to my bedroom, my head spinning. Linda's text kept nagging at me. I checked my sister's Instagram again, zooming in on the house. It looked like one of those upscale places in South Reno, way out of her price range. She's a part-time barista, no way she could afford that alone. I paced my room, trying to stay calm. Mom's humming from the living room grated on my nerves. Dad's muttering about fixing my balcony echoed in my head. They weren't acting like people who'd lost everything. I texted Linda again. Anything else about my sister? She replied, heard she's hanging out with some shady friend talking big about some business deal. Shady friend. That sounded like trouble. I sat down staring at my phone. My parents were hiding something, and my sister was tied to it. The next morning, Robert called. "Miranda, I got the records," he said, his voice low. "Your parents sold their house 2 weeks ago for $860,000. The money went straight to your sister for a house in South Reno." I froze, my phone pressed hard against my ear. What I managed to say. Robert kept going. The sale was clean. No foreclosure, no bad investments. They signed the funds over to her name. My chest tightened. They lied. They didn't lose their house. They gave it all to my sister. I thanked Robert, my voice shaking, and hung up. My parents were in my living room sipping coffee like nothing was wrong. How could they look me in the eye and lie like that? I needed more answers. I drove to a coffee shop to meet Sylvia Dean, my aunt. She's always been the one person in the family who tells it straight. When I sat down, she could see the anger in my eyes. "What's going on, Miranda?" she asked, leaning forward. I spilled everything: my parents' sudden arrival, their vague story, the Instagram post of my sister's new house. Sylvia's face darkened. "I was afraid of this," she said, stirring her coffee. "Your sister got pulled into a risky deal by Danielle Ford, her friend. They're planning to open some trendy restaurant in Reno, maybe with a mini casino attached. Your parents bankrolled the whole thing." My jaw dropped. A restaurant, a casino. That's what they sold their house for. I pressed Sylvia for details. "Danielle's been pushing your sister to go big," she said. "Tara's always been impulsive, and Danielle's got her convinced this is their ticket to millions. Your parents ate it up, handed over the cash without a second thought." I leaned back, my head spinning. My sister, a part-time barista, was chasing some pipe dream, and my parents gave her everything. Meanwhile, they were crashing at my place, acting broke. "Why didn't they tell me?" I asked. Sylvia sighed. "They knew you'd ask questions. You're not like Tara. You don't just nod and smile." Her words hit hard. I'd spent years building my life, saving for my apartment, while they poured their money into my sister's fantasy. Back at home, I couldn't look at my parents the same way. My mom was flipping through a magazine on my couch, her feet up like she owned it. My dad was measuring my kitchen counter, muttering about replacing it. "This could use an upgrade," he said, not even noticing me. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. They weren't just staying here. They were settling in, planning to take over my space while my sister lived in a mansion they paid for. The betrayal stung deep. I'd always known they favored her, but this was a new low. I called Robert again, my voice steadier now. "Can you send me the sale documents?" I asked. "I need proof." He agreed, promising to email them by evening. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop, replaying Sylvia's words. A restaurant, a mini casino. It sounded like a disaster waiting to happen. I knew Tara, she's never managed anything bigger than a coffee shop shift. And Danielle, I'd met her once, all flash and big promises. This was their scheme, and my parents were all in, leaving me to clean up the mess. I opened my sister's Instagram again, scrolling through her posts. Every picture screamed money: new furniture, a sleek kitchen, a pool in the backyard. My parents' money. I felt sick. They'd lied to my face, moved into my home, and thought I'd just let it slide. I wanted to confront them right then, but I needed those documents first. I had to be sure. I paced my bedroom, my anger building. My mom called from the living room. "Miranda, come eat with us." Her voice was cheerful, like we were one happy family. I didn't answer. I couldn't sit across from them pretending everything was fine. Sylvia texted me later. "Be careful, Miranda. Your parents won't take kindly to being called out." I knew she was right. They'd always brushed off my questions, but this time I wasn't backing down. I was done being their doormat. The truth was out, and I was ready to face them. That evening, I couldn't hold back. I marched into the living room where my mom was folding blankets she'd brought, stacking them on my chair. My dad was tinkering with my thermostat, grumbling about the settings. I took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm. Mom looked up, eyebrows raised. "What's this about Miranda?" she asked, folding her arms. I held up my phone, showing the email. "I know you sold your house. $860,000, all to my sister. No bad investments. So why are you here lying to me?" Mom's face tightened, but she forced a laugh. "You're overreacting," she said, turning back to the blankets. "It's not like that." I stepped closer. "Then show me your bank statements. Prove you're broke." Dad stopped messing with the thermostat, his jaw clenching. "Don't talk to your mother like that," he snapped. I didn't back down. "I deserve the truth. You gave my sister a fortune, and now you're taking over my home." Why? Mom's eyes narrowed. "We're your parents, Miranda. You owe us." "Owe them?" My blood boiled. "I owe you nothing," I said, my voice rising. "I worked for this apartment. You chose to give everything to her." "Why lie?" Mom slammed a blanket down. "Stop it, Miranda. You're so selfish," she shouted. I pushed harder. "Selfish? You sold your house, gave her the money, and now you're using me. Show me the proof, or admit you lied." Her face turned red, her hands shaking. Before I could react, she stepped forward and slapped me across the face. The sting shocked me, my cheek burning. I stumbled back, staring at her. Dad froze, his eyes wide. "Pamela, enough?" he barked, but she just glared at me, breathing hard. My phone rang, cutting through the tension. It was Linda. I stepped into the hallway, my hand on my cheek. "Miranda, you okay?" she asked. "I just heard your sister's been blowing money like crazy, fancy dinners, designer bags, the works." I clenched my fist. "Thanks, Linda," I said, my voice tight. "She's living it up while my parents crash here." I hung up, my anger surging. Tara was out there wasting their money while they tried to guilt me into giving up my home. A loud knock startled me. I opened the door to find Edward Blake, my neighbor, looking concerned. "Everything all right, Miranda?" he asked. I heard shouting. I forced a nod, my cheek still stinging. "Just a family disagreement, Mr. Blake," I said, trying to sound calm. He frowned, glancing past me. "If you need anything, I'm right next door." I thanked him and shut the door, turning back to my parents. They were whispering now. Mom's face still flushed, Dad avoiding my gaze. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "You need to leave," I said, my voice low but firm. Mom laughed, sharp and bitter. "You're kicking us out after everything we've done for you." I stood my ground. "You lied to me, took over my home, and now this." I touched my cheek, the pain fueling my resolve. "Get your things and go." Dad stepped forward, his voice softer. "Miranda, let's talk this out. We're family." I shook my head. "Family doesn't lie like this. You have until tomorrow morning." Mom scoffed, grabbing a blanket and storming to the guest room. Dad followed, muttering under his breath. I stood alone in my living room, my heart pounding. Linda's call, Edward's knock, and that slap, they all confirmed it. My parents weren't here to rebuild, they were here to take. I wasn't letting them win. The next morning, I stood firm. My cheek still stung from Mom's slap, but I was done playing nice. I walked into the living room where my parents were eating breakfast at my table, their suitcases still cluttering the corner. I crossed my arms. "You have 30 minutes to pack and leave," I said, my voice steady. Mom's fork froze midair. "What are you talking about, Miranda?" she said, her tone sharp. Dad set his coffee down, his eyes narrowing. "You're serious?" he asked. I nodded. "I know you lied about losing your house. You gave my sister everything and thought you could just take over my place." "Time's up." Mom laughed, but it was nervous, shaky. "You can't do this," she said, pushing her plate away. "We're your parents." I didn't flinch. "This is my home. You have 30 minutes or I'm calling the police." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You ungrateful child," he shouted. "After all we've done, you'd throw us out." I held his gaze. "You lied to me. You chose her over me. Get out." Mom's face crumpled, but I wasn't buying the act. She stood, grabbing her purse. "You'll regret this, Miranda," she said, her voice trembling. They didn't move. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Mom started packing a bag, but slowly, like she was stalling. Dad just sat there glaring at me. "We're not going anywhere," he said, crossing his arms. "You can't make us." My stomach twisted, but I'd had enough. I picked up my phone and dialed 911. "Hi, I need officers at my apartment," I said, keeping my voice calm. "My parents are refusing to leave my property." Mom's eyes widened. "You're calling the cops on us," she shrieked. I didn't answer, giving the dispatcher my address. 20 minutes later, 2 officers knocked on my door. I let them in. My heart pounding. "Ma'am, can you explain the situation?" one asked, his badge reading Officer Carter. I showed them my lease proving I owned the apartment. "They've been staying here without permission, and I've asked them to leave," I said. Mom interrupted, tears streaming down her face. "She's our daughter. We're just staying temporarily," she sobbed. Dad stood up, pointing at me. "She's heartless, kicking her own parents out," he yelled. Officer Carter raised a hand. "Sir, calm down. If she's the homeowner and wants you gone, you have to leave." The second officer, a woman named Officer Ruiz, checked my documents. "Everything's in order," she said. "You two need to gather your things and go." Mom's sobs grew louder, theatrical. "How could you do this?" "Miranda," she wailed, grabbing a suitcase. "We have nowhere to go." I stayed silent, my jaw tight. Dad's face was red with anger. "You'll pay for this," he muttered, shoving clothes into a bag. I didn't respond. I'd heard enough of their guilt trips. The officers stood by watching as my parents packed. Mom kept crying, tossing random items into her suitcase, my towels, my dishes. "Those aren't yours," I said, stepping forward. Officer Ruiz nodded. "Ma'am, only take what belongs to you," she said firmly. Mom glared at me but put my things back. Dad was quieter now, his anger simmering as he zipped up his bag. "You're no daughter of mine," he said under his breath. The words stung, but I held my ground. They'd crossed a line, and I wasn't letting them manipulate me anymore. It took them 10 more minutes to pack. The officers escorted them to the door. Mom turned back, her face wet with tears. "You're breaking our family apart," she said, her voice breaking. I looked her in the eye. "You did that when you lied to me," I said. Dad didn't say a word, just walked out, his suitcase dragging behind him. The officers followed them to their car, ensuring they left. I watched from my window as they drove away, my heart heavy but resolute. I closed the door, the silence deafening. My apartment was mine again, but the weight of what I'd done lingered. I wasn't backing down, though. They made their choice, and I made mine. Days later, I heard the fallout. Sylvia called me, her voice heavy. "Your parents showed up at your sister's new house," she said. "It didn't go well." Apparently, my mom and dad had arrived at Tara's doorstep expecting to move in. Tara let them stay, but within 3 days they were at each other's throats. My sister, flush with her fancy new home, didn't want them cramping her style. Sylvia said Tara kicked them out after a screaming match, accusing them of meddling in her life. I wasn't surprised. Tara's always been quick to take, but not to share. I sat at my desk processing it. My parents had burned their bridges with both of us now. Then Sylvia dropped another bomb. "Tara's in trouble," she said. "That restaurant and mini casino project with Danielle. It's collapsing." I leaned forward, gripping my phone. "What happened?" I asked. Sylvia explained that Danielle had mismanaged the funds, blowing most of the $864 on flashy decor and bad contracts. The project never even opened, suppliers backed out, permits fell through. Tara was left with nothing, and the bank was moving to repossess her house. I closed my eyes, the weight of it sinking in. My parents had gambled their entire savings on my sister's reckless dream, and now they were all paying the price. I thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong. A week later, Linda texted me screenshots from a local Reno community group online. My parents were spreading lies, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd abandoned them, thrown them out heartlessly, and left them homeless. Miranda's always been selfish, one post quoted my mom saying. Another had my dad claiming I'd turned my back on family. My stomach churned. They'd lied to me, taken over my home, and now they were dragging my name through the mud. I showed the posts to Robert, who was at my apartment going over some paperwork. "This is defamation," he said, his voice firm. "You can sue them for this." I hesitated. Suing my own parents felt extreme, but their lies were spreading fast. Neighbors I barely knew were giving me cold looks at the grocery store. I called Sylvia, needing her perspective. "They're trying to save face," she said. "They're embarrassed and lashing out. But you can't let them ruin your reputation." Her words hit home. I'd worked too hard to let their rumors define me. "What do?" I asked. Sylvia was blunt. "Fight back. Show them you're not their scapegoat." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. She was right. I had to protect myself. Robert got to work. He drafted a cease and desist letter demanding my parents retract their statements publicly or face a defamation lawsuit. "We've got the evidence," he said, pointing to the screenshots and my lease, proving I owned my apartment. "They can't argue with this." I signed the letter, my hand steady but my heart racing. Robert sent it to my parents through a process server, ensuring they couldn't ignore it. I waited, unsure how they'd react. Would they double down or back off? A few days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my mom, her voice shaky. "Miranda, why are you doing this?" she asked. "You're tearing us apart." I clenched my jaw. "You spread lies about me," I said. "You said I abandoned you when you lied and tried to take my home. Stop, or I'll see you in court." She went quiet, then hung up. I didn't feel good about it, but I felt strong. Within a week, the posts were gone. My parents issued a public apology on the same community group, admitting they'd misspoken about me. It was short, grudging, but it was enough. Robert checked with his contacts. No new rumors had popped up. Sylvia texted me, "Proud of you, Miranda. You stood your ground." I sat in my apartment now, peaceful again, and let out a long breath. My parents had lost everything: their house, their relationship with Tara, and now their credibility. I hadn't wanted it to end like this, but they'd forced my hand. I wasn't their doormat anymore. Weeks later, I found peace. I blocked my mom, my dad, and my sister on every platform: phone, email, social media. Their numbers sat in my blocked contacts, a quiet reminder of the line I'd drawn. My apartment felt like mine again. No suitcases cluttering the corners. No one rearranging my things. I walked through my living room, running my fingers over the furniture I'd worked so hard to buy. For the first time in months, I could breathe. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was freeing. I'd spent years trying to please my family, always coming second to Tara. But no more. I was done chasing their approval. Sylvia stopped by one afternoon, bringing coffee and her usual blunt wisdom. "You did the right thing," she said, sitting on my couch. "Family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you." I nodded, stirring my latte. "It's hard," I admitted. "I keep wondering if I was too harsh." Sylvia shook her head. "You set boundaries. That's strength, Miranda, not cruelty." Her words sank in. I'd always seen boundaries as selfish, but now I understood they were how I protected myself. Sylvia squeezed my hand. "You're tougher than you think," she said. I smiled, feeling a weight lift. Linda kept me grounded too. We met for lunch at a diner near my office, splitting fries and trading stories. "You're better off without them," she said, dipping a fry in ketchup. "I saw your sister's latest post. She's still acting like nothing's wrong." I sighed, shaking my head. Tara had lost her house, but she was back to posting selfies, pretending her life was perfect. I didn't check her page anymore. It wasn't worth the energy. "I'm done with her drama," I told Linda. She grinned. "Good. Focus on you now." Her support, steady and no nonsense, reminded me I wasn't alone. I started small rituals to reclaim my space. I bought new curtains, bright ones that let the Nevada sun flood my apartment. I rearranged my bookshelves, organizing them exactly how I wanted. Every choice, no matter how small, felt like a declaration of my independence. I wasn't just surviving, I was building a life that was mine. At work, I threw myself into my spreadsheets, finding comfort in the numbers. They didn't lie or manipulate, they just were. My boss noticed my focus, even hinting at a promotion. For the first time, I felt like I was moving forward, not just holding on. Sylvia invited me to her place for dinner one evening. Over homemade lasagna, she shared stories of her own fights with family, how she'd learned to stand up for herself decades ago. "You're not defined by them, Miranda," she said, passing me a plate. "You're defined by what you do next." Her words stuck with me. I wasn't the daughter who'd abandoned her family as my parents had claimed. I was the woman who'd fought for her peace, who'd learned her worth. I thanked Sylvia, feeling a warmth I hadn't in a long time. Linda texted me updates about work and life, checking in like a true friend. "You're killing it," she wrote one day with a picture of her dog wearing a tiny hat. I laughed, saving the photo. These moments, small, real, human, were what mattered now. I didn't need my parents' approval or Tara's chaos. I had people who saw me for me, not for what I could give them. One night, sitting on my balcony, I thought about everything I'd been through. The lies, the betrayal, the fight to take back my home, it had all led here. I'd learned to value myself, to say no without guilt. I'd drawn a line and I wasn't crossing it again. I looked out at the Reno skyline, the lights steady against the dark. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And that was enough. I turned to the camera I'd set up, something I'd started doing to process my thoughts. "Family is supposed to lift you up," I said, my voice clear. "But what happens when they tear you down? When they cross your boundaries, lie to you, use you?" I had to make a choice, to let them walk over me or to stand up. I chose me. What would you do if family crossed your boundaries? I stopped recording, feeling lighter. Maybe someone out there would hear my story and find their own strength. That was enough for me.